Hello everyone, welcome to my common sense presentation on PowerPoint. We're going to be reviewing a book called Common Sense, like I just said, written by Thomas Paine. Yeah, let's do it. Introduction. Introduction. Common Sense is a book that talks a lot about how the government has been designed and how it's manipulated its people in the past and taken advantage of their lack of common sense. It was written in 1775 and published anonymously by Thomas Paine in 1776, with the goal of advocating independence from Great Britain to people in the 13 colonies. Chapter 1. Paine begins by discussing the design of government and the negative impact by restraining our vices and creating distinctions. Government is produced by wickedness, while society is produced by our own wants. The former negatively affects our happiness, the latter positively by uniting our affections. This design is no accident. It's done this way to ensure that we remain under control and that no one thinks for themselves. No one has enough common sense to say, no, I won't do this because it's obviously nonsensical. Ring a bell? The government is, at best, a necessary evil. It's proven to cause many problems, but it is kind of essential considering that without it, society would collapse on itself since humans also have shown in the past that on their own they can be reckless and irrational. Chapter 2. Paine argues that human beings are created equal, and that there is no natural or religious reason for dividing humanity into separate classes of kings and subjects. In the early ages of the world, according to the scripture of consequence, there were no kings, and thus there were no wars. It is the pride of kings that sends mankind into confusion, and that ultimately pitting us against each other, whether intentionally or not. Ancient Israel copied monarchy from its heathen neighbors. Paine argues that neither nature nor scripture justifies this. The evil of hereditary succession is a more pressing concern than its absurdity. The practice lends itself to oppression. Men who consider themselves born monarchs often find themselves growing insolent and becoming disconnected from the interests of ordinary people. This actually makes them dangerously ignorant, unfit to rule anything. Succession is also vulnerable to unscrupulous regents who take advantage of minor or weak kings. Paine tallies up 8 civil wars and 19 rebellions in England alone, arguing that hereditary succession doesn't make for peace. Christ. Finally, to conclude Chapter 2, Paine argues that it's unclear what role the king has in England. Better is one man, he concludes, than all the crowned ruffians that ever lived. Chapter 3. After declaring that the time for debate was over and that England had decided that war was the only way to dispute between England and America, Christ, I keep stuttering, and that America has risen to the challenge, Paine argues that this matter is not just the concern of a country or a kingdom, but of an entire continent, and that likewise is not just an issue for the current page, but for posterity. Chapter 4. Paine proposes to survey America's present readiness for independence. America's greatest strength, he says, is in its unity. Paine concludes that nothing but independence would so neatly conclude America's pressing issues. Appendix. Going forward, independence will either be achieved by law or by a mob. If the first prevails, then America has a chance to begin the world all over again, but by creating the purest constitution ever seen. Independence is the only bond that can ensure ongoing unity among Americans. Paine rests his case here. And for the summary, which is something that this is what I took from the book. To sum everything up, Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense as a means of drawing attention to the importance of independence and common sense. The rivalries of certain countries, corruptions of governments, and faulty kingdom systems all serve as examples of why it's so important. The end. Yeah, so that's the end of the first book report in this little saga of presentations I'm going to be posting. Thanks for watching, and see ya.